Welcome back to Beyond the Headline, everyone. It's a great day to be with us on the show because I'm here with the co-founder and CEO of Kindara, Will Sachs. Will, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jenna.
Can we start out with you just introducing us to the Kindara movement?
Yeah, for sure. So we started Kindara, my wife Katie and I, because we had our own experience with fertility charting, and both of our eyes were open to the amazing amount that you can learn from tracking data related to fertility. And we just wanted to share that with other couples because we found it to be an area of life for us that brought us a lot of extra intimacy and was really sweet. Like I, for the first time, understood what was going on with her body. She understood that she wasn't pregnant every month. And through tracking, we were able to talk about this area of life that I'd never talked about with any other woman before. And I just thought it was a beautiful thing. And so we wanted to give that to everybody. To use as a method of birth control, to understand your cycle if you're trying to get pregnant, or just to understand your body if there's some cycle irregularity that's happening. So that was why we started, and now we're one of the top-rated fertility apps in the world. We've got users from all over the planet entering data and using that data to understand what's happening with their bodies and their fertility.
And then in addition to that, you guys have Wink, which will be shipping next year. Can you introduce us to Wink?
Yes, so Wink is our connected Bluetooth basal oral fertility thermometer, and it syncs with the app. So this is we have working prototypes. I've been using it for 3 weeks now, and we're shipping it in March. Very excited to be getting that into the market because it adds a little bit of magic to the experience of fertility charting. And we'll get people's data into the app easier so we can analyze it and tell them what's happening.
There's so many things, Will, that I want to cover, but the first one is the approach that you guys have taken to really demystify talking about all of this. Because if you say, I have a period, which for some reason seems to be surprising to people that happens, it's a hushed subject and everyone kind of looks away. But you guys have made it very educational, very data-driven, and very comfortable to talk about. Why has that been so important?
I think that came out of the founding of the company because when I first learned about this stuff, I had no idea as a man. You know, I was 28 and I thought I knew everything about sex and birth control and conception. And it turns out I didn't know anything. And when I learned that I didn't know anything, I started to question, why is that? Like, why didn't I ever get taught any of this stuff? Why have I never been in a conversation where any of this was discussed? And Katie, my partner, had the same reaction. We were both like, oh my God, not talking about this stuff creates so much suffering in the world and just bad suboptimal experiences for people. And it's so core to us as humans, like reproduction, making another human, not making another human. It's really core to the human experience and deserves to be talked about. So right from day one, I think Katie's first blog post ever was like about cervical fluid or basal body temperature. And so from day one, it was just all about educating, normalizing, decatastrophizing, and making this area of life like something that we can all talk about and understand and navigate. Because if you can't talk about it, you can't really navigate it.
And I think it's really important that you say that. And I just read an article, I can't remember in what publication, but that apps like Kindara are really helping girls who are growing up because it's no longer extremely embarrassing to mention your cycle or mention something related to it because you have it on your phone and everything is tracked. You guys want a girl to use Kindara before she gets her period throughout menopause. Tell us about the Big Vision because that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, so I think I think in the future it's going to be an obvious thing that women are going to have a record of their reproductive health from when they first get their period all the way through to when they stop menstruating. Like it's part of our personal health record as humans that has typically been at the doctor's office in a filing cabinet that we didn't have access to. But now there's this big revolution in medicine happening where each of us as consumers of healthcare are taking responsibility for our own health and tracking our own data. And so I think in the realm of women's health, that's going to be the case. Women will want to track that data all the way through their lives and use it to make sense of the different challenges that women experience around getting pregnant or avoiding pregnancy or breastfeeding or irregularity and then eventually menopause. And so it seems obvious that that's the future, and we're trying to make that easier and create that future. I've been taking my weight with a wireless scale now for about 6 years. And it's so great to be able to go back and look at my weight over the last 6 years. I can see, okay, here's where I started exercising, here's where I stopped exercising, you know?
This was Thanksgiving.
Here's Thanksgiving, exactly. Here's Christmas, you know? And that gives me a feeling like I'm in control of my weight. And the longer that record goes, the more in control I feel. And I think women using Kindara have a similar experience. The more data they have in the system and the longer of a record, the more in control and on top of that area of life they feel. And so that's why I think it's just going to extend from throughout the entire spectrum from adolescence all the way through to menopause.
And I think something that is not directly in line with that, but it's certainly related, is the way you've approached even Wing. You know, it's a very sleek design. I can have it in my purse and no one's going to be like, oh God, what are you pulling out there? It looks like a mascara wand.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was intentional because we didn't want it to communicate that the user is either sick or trying to get pregnant, which is what most people would think if they saw a thermometer on your bedside table. So we wanted it to communicate this is like a sleek device that fits into my life, and nobody has to know what it is unless I choose to tell them.
Can we chat about Wing 2? What was the design process like for you guys?
Yeah, so we thought about it a lot. We brainstormed a lot of different ideas, like what would be important. It helped because Katie and I are users of the method ourselves, and so that helped a lot. Like we already knew what was wrong with all of the basal thermometers that were on the market already, and frankly, we were kind of insulted by them because this is such an important area of life. To have this cheap plastic thermometer that's beeping annoyingly at you just was disconsonant. It didn't fit the experience. So we knew we wanted to make a nice thermometer. And then we did focus groups, actually. We had an intern that was in a sorority here in Boulder. And so we did a bunch of different shapes up of the device, different colors. And we went over to the sorority and tested each of them and got each of the women in the sorority to come into a room, like grab it off the bedside table, lie down in bed, use it, put it back on the bedside table, and we looked like, did people stand it up? Did they sit it down? Did they use one hand? Did they use two hands? Did they like the weight? Did they want it to be heavier or lighter? And that helped a lot because we saw actual people using our mock-ups that were just made out of foam at that point.
Very
and then we
savvy.
knew it. Sorry?
It said very tech savvy in the beginning.
Right. It's like curved foam, and some of them, and then we did different colors, so we had like 5 or 6 different colors. And you learn an amazing amount. Like every time you interact with customers, I've found, you learn so much, stuff that you wouldn't even think of. And it's so simple. You go and ask your customers what they want, but it's so easy in a startup to get divorced from that, decide you know what customers want, and then go build it, and then be surprised that they don't actually want what we thought they wanted.
What are some things that surprised you during that process?
The complexity of hardware is one of them. So we set out to create a really high polish consumer electronics device, and we didn't appreciate at the beginning the complexity of doing that. So that was a surprise. Our growth has been a bit of a surprise, actually. Just the amount of women that download Kindara. We don't do any advertising or marketing right now. And we've had almost 1 million women now download the app, and so that's been a bit of a surprise. And I think that's all just because we've listened to our customers and given them a product that's simple and useful and beautiful and serves their needs.
I'm glad that you mentioned hardware because you have the classic saying, hardware is hard. But it really is, and I can't imagine the hoops that you guys have to go through to bring me the finished product that I throw on my nightstand and say, hey, it's done. Tell us about some of the challenges there.
Yeah, well, it's just a totally different mindset than software. And so the whole agile movement with software, the agile movement is like we can build something in a weekend and launch it and test it and keep iterating. And hardware is not like that yet at all. I tell people budget 18 months from when you first start the design to when you ship it, if you're going to do volume. And that's changing, but it is like there's just a lot of steps and you can't rush through them. Like you can't you got to wait 6 weeks to get molds made, and you got to wait weeks to order components, and then all the components have to come together, and you have to test putting them together, and then you're going to learn stuff, and you have to do another build. So I would say just budget enough time. You might be able to hack it down to 12 months or 8 months or something if it's a simple product or you have most of it figured out or it's off-the-shelf components. But it's a different animal altogether.
What was your biggest lesson
so far in Kindara?
Mm-hmm. With the hardware aspect.
Oh, with the hardware aspect.
Ship software instead.
No, I'd say our biggest lesson was to do more design for manufacturability up front. So we were uncompromising with the design in terms of what we wanted, and then we finished the design, and then we said, okay, let's build this. And that added a lot of time and cost. If we had taken the design and said, this is what we want, but what can we build? Like, how can we make this more manufacturable? We may have been able to get a product that was just as good, but that was less complex to manufacture.
And I think one of the important things that you guys have done very well is really keeping your community updated with how things are going. Back in November, you had a really detailed post, here's where we are, here's where we're going, here's what you can expect. Why is that so crucial?
Because we're asking people to trust us, right? To help fund the creation of the product and to be part of it. And so I think part of the deal is, hey, we asked you to be part of this product. We're going to keep you updated and tell you how it's going.
And the response has been great.
Yeah, I think people appreciate that. I wish we could send more updates. I mean, we're actually going to send another one in a couple of days here because we built Winx in Thailand yesterday. And so I want to send an update about that.
Are those the moments where you're just like, yes, we're getting there?
Yeah, totally. Like our guy in Thailand, one of our team is over there, and he's been texting me in the evenings. Like he'll get up at 7 a.m. and that's 9 p.m. And so he's texting me what's happening, and it's like, oh my god, this is happening. We have an assembly line in Thailand that can make 5,000 Winx a day.
It's a real thing.
It's happening, yeah. So that's exciting, and I always try to enjoy those days because building a startup, there's days where everything is going wrong. And those days, it's really easy to feel like, oh my God, we're screwed. So it's these right now. The days are positive, and it feels great. It's like, yes, we're doing it. We're accomplishing what we set out to do. We're growing. We're making money. People like the product. Our mission is being realized in the world, and all that feels great.
I'm glad that you also mentioned, though, Will, that there's days in startups where you get up in the morning and nothing on your to-do list gets done, and everything else that you're doing goes wrong. And so then at the end of the day, you're kind of sitting there like, what? Why am I doing this? And I know that when you guys were fundraising, initially you got 55 no's. And you have a great post about this. Can you share a little bit of your experiences there?
Yeah, sure. So about fundraising or about like bad days?
Fundraising. We'll go with that.
Yeah, fundraising is something that I've had to learn how to do, coming from having no experience at all. And that's taken a while, and I feel like now I've got it. And the thing that got me through this last fundraise was just focusing on the process of it. So instead of focusing on, oh, I need to get a yes, it was I just need to have a meeting. And then I said to myself, I'm going to have 100 meetings. By the time I do 100 meetings, the company's going to be funded. And so every week I would just try to have as many meetings as possible. And then eventually, around 70 meetings, we closed the round. So that really helped me because instead of focusing on, oh my God, are we going to be able to raise money or not? That question of is this going to happen or not? I just put my faith in the process and said, if I do 100 meetings, we're going to get funded because I believe in what we're doing. Other people are going to believe in what we're doing too. So I just got to do 100 meetings. And that really helped because I get a no and I'd be like, sweet, one more meeting. Check. And I literally made a checklist from 1 to 100. And every time I had a meeting, I would check it off. I'd be like, all right, I'm at 30 meetings, 40 meetings, 50 meetings. And the more meetings I did, the better my pitch got. Yeah. And the more confidence I had as I would get like a couple yeses, and then that got us to the end. So I really like that as a metaphor for anything, actually. Like, what's the unit of progress for anything? So if you want to get a six-pack, like the unit of progress is to work out. And so you say, I got to work out like 300 times. And so you don't worry about the six-pack until you get to the 300th workout. And by then you probably have the six-pack. Or anything. And I've been trying to work that in my life since, and I really like that a lot.
I think that's a big one because, especially with fundraising, a lot of times some of the no's you get aren't necessarily about you. Maybe they invest in education and they were just taking a meeting with you to explore. So you really have to remember that.
Yeah, I think it's random to a large degree. A lot of it is based on personal chemistry, the other pitches that they've seen, what they think about the different markets, like what investors think about different markets. So I tried to think of it like a matching process, like kind of like dating, where if you want to find the person you're going to marry, you got to go date 50 people. And out of that process, you'll find the person that you want to marry, hopefully. And if you don't, you go date another 50 people. So, yeah, and the people that, like our lead investors, Boston Seed Capital, Dave Walter, is so great. And I feel so lucky to be working with him.
Do you know what number he was?
He was like in the middle somewhere, like 30 something, 30 or 40. And when I think through all those meetings, like he's the one I would pick. I would want him over anybody else, and so that tells me that there's a matching process going on there. It's like the investor's got to be right for the business, the CEO's got to get along with the investor. There has to be chemistry there, and I think that's why it can take so long.
Yeah, you just need to put all the little pieces in the puzzle. You don't want to leave one out.
Yeah.
When it came to the meetings that you were having with investors, what are some of the hardest questions that you were asked that really refined your pitch?
I have to take myself back to when I was fundraising. I mean, all investors want to know, how are you going to get customers? How is your business defensible? Why is your team the team to do this? And how are you going to make money? I mean, those are the questions, and those are difficult because there's always competition. There's always other people out there with better teams. If you haven't proven that you're going to make money, then it's hard to prove that you're going to make money. So I think they're all difficult. I think what I tell people is, and Paul Graham says the same. He's got an amazing article on fundraising that anybody who's thinking about fundraising should go find his article. But basically, I had to convince myself in what we were doing and feel rock solid about the future of Kindara, the future of medicine, how we fit into that, how this company is going to exist in the future. And when I got rock solid about that, that helped me answer all the questions because I was coming from a place of confidence. And if you don't believe your own story, people can smell that or feel that somehow. I'm
glad that you mentioned confidence, and it really evolves over time, especially at a startup, because in the beginning it really is just an idea and you're testing it out and seeing what happens. How have the needs of Kindara changed for you as a leader? How has your role evolved?
Well, at the beginning I was doing everything. It was me and Katie at the very beginning. So it was like she did half of it and I did half. And that was it. And so we did everything that got done, we did. And now it's awesome. We have a team and stuff gets done. And so I can focus on the horizon and what's coming next. And making Kindara into a sustainable company in terms of our culture, in terms of everyone here knowing why we exist and what we're trying to accomplish. And that's fun because it feels like now we're building for the future. We're not just like struggling to survive. Yeah, like when a startup begins, it's like this tiny little sprout. It's like sticking out of the ground, and like anyone can step on it or it can get flooded and die. And I feel like now Kindara is this little tree that is a little bit more resilient and is trying to grow into a giant oak.
You mentioned that part of that is, imparting to everyone why you exist. When new team members come on, how do you explain that to them? This is why we exist. This is your role in it.
Yeah, so I started the interview process. So when I interview someone, I ask them, why Kindara? Why do you want to work here? What is it about this place that calls to you? And I listen really carefully to their answer. And then I tell them that we're a feminist company and that we exist to empower women around their health and their bodies as a way to evolve culture on the planet, and just see what they say about that and try and get a feel for if that's something that they can feel some heart connection to. And if they can, then I think that they fit here. If it's something that they're not interested in, then they're not going to fit here.
Have you gotten some interesting responses?
Yeah, I mean, the word feminist is loaded. Some people are like, I'm not a feminist. And then I say, well, do you believe in the equal equality and humanity of men and women? And they're like, oh, yeah, of course. And then I say, well, then you're a feminist. And then we get into these interesting conversations. Yeah, it's typically like we try to wear our mission on our sleeves because that's why we exist. Like, that's why the company got started, out of that mission. And so everyone here feels something towards the mission. And I think that simplifies a lot. Like, without that, it's hard. It would be a lot harder to hold everything together, I think. It's like,
the glue.
It's like glue that holds us together. Yeah.
Has anything surprised you about leadership?
Yeah, a lot. Most things, I would say. When I started, I really had no idea what the job of CEO was. I was like, oh, I'm going to start a company. Cool. I'm going to be the guy in charge. And everything's just going to happen. And that's not at all what leadership is. And I've learned that over the last 5 years, that it's a lot about vulnerability and listening to people. And yeah, the job of CEO changes a lot. Like, it's changed from when we were 5 people to when now we're 13 people. And so I'm like learning constantly. I feel like I've been on this edge of learning from day one till now, and I have not stopped learning the entire time. And I'm sure I'm going to keep learning going forward.
What do you mean by vulnerability as a leader?
I mean that everybody has their blind spots, and if you're not aware of your blind spots and own your blind spots, like, bad things happen. So a big part of being a leader for me is knowing what my blind spots are and wearing them on my sleeve and telling my team, I know I can be stubborn and I'm working on it. And just being vulnerable about my areas, like what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, so that everyone else can do the same. Because there's this idea of leadership where you're like the infallible leader can do no wrong, but everyone sees through that. Like, nobody
You're
is
not
that.
a superhero.
No one's a
No cape.
superhero. Everybody has like warts and blind spots and
Kryptonite.
And everybody else can see what your kryptonite is, right? Like, if you work with somebody, you get a sense of what their weak spots are, and so you're either talking about it with your coworkers or you're talking about it with the leader. And I think I just find that to be a more authentic way to be real at work, to not pretend that I'm a superhero, but to try and like be real about how I'm developing myself. And I think that's part of our culture. I guess you could say it's like a more feminine way of operating. And it works for me, at least. Because trying to be the infallible leader doesn't feel authentic to me.
It's not authentic. Like you said, none of us have that. And I think you do a great job on your blog, which everyone should read, of just kind of going into that. You have a great post about time management where you were tracking everything you were doing back in 2013, and it really surprised you and caused you to actually rethink how you shape the day.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think the world is starved for authentic connection, just in general. I think we all want more authentic connection with the people in our lives, with the people that we interact with through the internet. And that's been a big part of Kindara's a competitive advantage, I think, is just trying to like be more authentic and more real in everything we do, like in our writing, when we're talking to our users in the office. That's what people want. It's like something that people crave.
I think it goes to everything we do, and it's another blog post that I think was a little bit more recent for you in November when you talk about 10 lessons that you learned from Big Daddy. I love that one. And my favorite one, which goes to what you were saying, was number 10, when you said, underneath humor and laughter and people and ideas and music and art, there's an underlying sweetness to life. Connect with it often. Can you explain that and how authenticity is really the root of it?
Oh man, metaphysical questions. Yeah, I mean, we're here, and that's nice. Like, it's nice to be here as a human. And if you can connect with that often, then I think what comes out of you in terms of production, whether you're an artist or a business person or a writer or whatever, if you can connect with that, what comes out will be more authentic than trying to get somewhere or trying to be something you're not. For me, I think that underneath everything, like, it sounds corny, but there's a love that exists. And you can feel it, you can tune into it if you have a quiet moment. And that's what underlies all of this. Like, that's what we all want as humans. We want to connect with each other, we want to feel loved, and we want to give love. Obviously, we want a roof over our heads and food to eat. And if we have all of that, if we have a roof over our heads, food to eat, heat, and connection, it's like, what more can you really ask for? You're not going to get any happier than that I don't think. That's what I found in my life. So yeah, that's why I think it's important to remember that more money's not going to make you happier, more achievements aren't going to make you happier. It's a fun game to play. Like, can I build this company? Can I make $1 million? Those are fun games, but ultimately those aren't going to make me happier. It's funny, when I was raising this money in this last round, I was just 100% focused on closing the round, right? Like, close the round, we're going to have the money to make Kindara into this really cool force in the world. And I was like, I got into this thinking of, when I close the money, I'll be happier. Because I was miserable raising the round. It was not my favorite thing to do. And I was miserable, so I had this mental construct of, I just need to get to this place at the end, close the round, and I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happier. And then we closed the round, and the next day I felt so depressed. Like, we had the money in the bank, and I felt so depressed. And I think it's because it was a false finish line. Like, there's no finish line. You're never going to get somewhere in life and have arrived and say, I've arrived. Now everything,
I am finished.
Everything is perfect. I am pristinely happy, and I will be forever now that I've done this thing. Like, life doesn't work like that. As soon as you level up, whatever you're trying to do, whatever game you're playing, as soon as you level up, you just enter into the next level at the beginning. And so I think that's important to remember. And that was a good experience for me to remember, that I'm not going to be any happier in the future than I am today. So, like, what can I do today to feel good about what I'm doing?
And I think that you wrapped that, it's weird how well that goes into the way you wrapped up that number 10 in the blog post, but you said dance with life until the music stops. And I think that's so important. The music doesn't stop when you reach an achievement.
Yeah, the music doesn't stop until you're gone. I love the story of Colonel Sanders, who started Kentucky Fried Chicken in his 70s.
I don't know this story.
Yeah, he was penniless, and he started it in his 70s, and then it grew into this huge thing. And so he had a reboot very late in life. And I love thinking about that story. It's like, there's so many, we all have new chapters. There's always a new chapter, no matter what's happened before.
I love that. So I'm not going to ask you any more metaphysical questions, but we do always end on 3 questions that aren't related to work and are just related to life. The first one, if you were a song, what song would you be?
I just wrote a song. So
Impressive.
That's my other passion is music. So I just wrote a song, and it's been in my head for the last 2 weeks. It's called Medak Puff, and so I'd be that song. That song, it's just been in my head for 2 weeks, and I'd want to be that song for a few minutes and dance as that song.
You got it. Yours is way cooler than mine. I would want to be Ice Ice Baby. You actually wrote yours.
Ice Ice Baby is a good answer.
It's a classic. Question number 2. If you could teleport anywhere right now, where would you teleport to? Like an instant.
On the Earth or anywhere in the universe?
I guess anywhere. People are really interested in outer space.
Yeah, man. I think I would teleport to outer space. I would want to see the Earth from space. There's this thing called the overview effect. Have you heard about that? Mm-hmm. That astronauts report once they see the Earth as this ball, this blue and green ball floating in this endless blackness of space, it does something to their brains. And they come back feeling that we're one human family, called the overview effect. So I would go to space and see the overview effect. My number 2 would be to teleport to Thailand to our factory to see rings being made right now.
That might be a tiny bit more possible, but hey, let's shoot big. Last one. What's one question that you have always wanted to be asked, but nobody has ever asked you? Personal, professional, athletic achievement from when you were 7?
What about, like, will humanity survive?
I've never gotten that one before, so I'm going to have to ask for the answer. Do you think humanity will survive?
I think yes. I used to think no.
Okay.
I was really into climate science and looking at environmentalism, and I was convinced that we were not going to survive. And now, having gone through the process of entrepreneurship, I can tell you that we are going to survive because human creativity is unbounded, and we'll figure it out. We might trash part of the planet, but we're going to figure it out.
I love that, and it's a perfect way to end. I've never gotten that question before. Well,
that's a great question that you asked me. I love that question.
How can everyone stay up to date with you personally and then also with Kindara?
Kindara is at kindara.com, Kindara, and my blog is willsacks.com, WILLSACKS.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Yeah, thanks, Jenna. It's fun.